It's recording.
It is recording.
We tried the iPad, fancy iPad, is having some issues, so we did the classic.
Turn it off, turn it back on. And we're working.
Yeah, so we're going to keep an eye on it. Hopefully we stay here with you.
Mm-hmm.
So Hope has written her first email for the Chronicles.
Yeah.
And she feels like I felt last week, which is like we're going to vomit.
Yeah.
But by the time you see this video, perhaps you will have time to subscribe to the emails if you're not yet.
Yeah.
So make sure that you go subscribe so you can hear Hope's story. And then I have my next one written for next week.
Yeah.
Which has actually gotten kind of exciting to be like, it's like freeing once it's out there.
I know. I think I'll feel free tomorrow morning.
When you can't do anything about it.
When the email goes out at midnight, and hopefully I'm already asleep by then because I didn't sleep last night because I was thinking about it, and because the caps won. So there's my moment. CABS, caps.
Okay. Yes, I still think they're going to disappoint us since it's video.
Fuck you. No, that's not what's happening. And that is an old ancestral wound that the cats have worked through. Segue into what we're going to talk about this week.
Ancestral wounds.
Ancestral wounds, family hurts, how we transcend them, how we tend to hold on to them, how we can choose what we want to carry with us,
in the future,
and
how to pass on to our next generation. Family.
So
why
take it off?
I think we wanted to talk about this because again, we see a lot of
shit is coming up in our emails.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's coming up in our emails. Like, why am I like this? Why do I act like this? Why do I feel like this? We're seeing a lot of wisdom on Instagram actually lately about like how, especially as women, we tend to carry and to recreate the same patterns that our mothers created in our lives, and not that they did anything wrong. They did what they were taught to do by their mothers and their mothers and their mothers.
Yeah, we're always doing the best we can.
Yeah. So we tend to not speak up. We tend to stay small. We tend to not want to disrupt things. We tend to want to keep the peace. We tend to, want to stay quiet and not cause a scene. And so I think as we started to write these emails, it was like we're doing the exact opposite and not staying small and really like putting our story out there, which is not something that women are encouraged to do or it used to be, at least when we were growing up. So just kind of examining those threads of how we notice that we don't want to be like that. Not because, again, our moms did anything wrong, they did the best that they could, but it's like brought up a lot of emotions because I find myself not speaking up or saying how I feel because I wasn't taught to do that. I was taught not to do that. And when you want to find that courage and finding that bravery, digging down and really finding it, that it's still within you, because women have always been badasses and strong, just more quietly. But we were just trying to figure out ways to break that and be more vocal and stand up.
So give an example of what you think is something that you have been passed down, that you almost just feel like was put there and instilled in you, that you didn't really have almost a choice in the matter, and now you're working through how to break that. Your voice.
My Donna, which is why her bird. So in Nosara, we learned that there's different forces of energy. So the projection of your voice outwards is Donna energy. That's why I have these birds on me to remind me to project my voice once I've found my voice. But my voice, my family, we don't speak our feelings. We don't tell each other how we feel. We don't tell each other what's going on in our lives. It's all very closed off and oh, I don't want to offend you, so I'm not going to even ask. So it's always, I've never said how I feel. I've never been taught to say how I feel. If I do say how I feel, it's it feels weird. I don't stand up for myself. I didn't stand up for myself. And I saw that growing up through my grandparents and my parents and my sisters. And it was always very frustrating because I was afraid to tell my family what I was going through, stuff that I'm writing about. And you would think like your family's like the people you should feel safe to share with.
They're usually the ones that are hardest to break patterns with, though. They're usually the ones that will inevitably perpetuate the stuff that you're doing because it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
And because they recognize it as safe or just what has always happened.
And then I know I scared them, and they were afraid to talk to me about like the addiction stuff because they were afraid it would push me away. But then to me, it felt like they didn't care enough about me to say something, which wasn't true. It was just that they didn't know how to do it, and I didn't know how to talk about it. So then just not communicating shut everything down and made everyone confused.
Yeah.
So it's been like, there's lines, there's generations of family that I see where we don't talk about health issues, we don't talk about anything, we don't talk about how we feel. My family still has trouble communicating. We don't really talk that much about, like the deeper stuff, and it's caused me to feel like, especially as we move into the new business and really put ourselves out there, I find those fears of like saying how I feel and how I think, the block comes from that ancestral inability to speak and to use my voice. So I think that's what I'm trying to break down and have been. It's been so far a 5-year process.
It is a
lifelong process.
It is a process, and it's one of those things that, like, when you feel hurts and when you see patterns in yourself that you do that are almost like unconscious patterns, right, or unconscious ways of thinking, you have to first see that. It's not just like, oh, I have these old wounds, like I need to work through. It's like, oh shit, I am this way, and why am I this way? Why am I this way? Why do I do the shit that I do? Is this a projection because this is how I've been taught? Is this something I've chosen? Because we have choice in how we want to live our life and how we want to project ourselves or use our voice, and so, like, that's the first step. It's like,
this is why therapy is really helpful.
This is why therapy is helpful.
Therapy takes you down through your family.
It takes you back. Yeah, and that's why
telling you how you started and how your family interacted with you. And that's like when you have those like moments of enlightenment where you're like, holy shit, that is exactly why I'm like this.
Yeah.
And then that's helpful so that you don't feel like there's something wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you.
Well,
it's just identifying the patterns.
And this is, I think, where we get tripped up, is like we recognize, ooh, my mom or my dad or my siblings or my family, like my grandparents, ooh, I see this trend. I see, oh, well, because this person did this and then they did that, and oh, so because of this and that, I did this. You don't have to keep going, though. Like, if you want to break those patterns, like, that is a very conscious thing that you have to do. Like, when I got pregnant, I felt really shitty at first because I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of things that I don't want to be and I don't want to do that my parents did. And I felt really guilty about it. I felt like I was somehow, just by thinking those things, saying that what they did was wrong. And it's not. It's not that what they did was wrong, or how they raised me was wrong, or how they made me think about where I fit in the world as wrong. But as somebody who has that's not a word, somebody who's someone who's dove into like the shit in the shit of why I do some of the things that I do, and looking at it kind of from like the outsider's perspective so I don't get too emotionally washed up in it, but seeing it as like, oh, I can break these patterns and I have a choice in how I want to raise my daughter. I have a choice in how I want to be around other human beings. I have a a choice in how I want to treat other people, because this goes into racism, this goes into sexism, this goes into how if we smile at people on the street, this goes into how we hold ourselves up. Like, all these things, like, they all go together.
You also have to be careful not to use it as, like, once you identify the things, you have to be careful not to just blame the behavior from then on what you've identified as how you're raised. Because I used to play the victim all the time.
Yeah.
And as we write these emails, we're going to hear more and more about our stories, and like there's some trauma in there for everyone. Everyone has trauma. Everyone has trauma. So what I used to do was rely on that trauma to defend my actions. So like, I deserve to do this because I was mistreated. I was not raised in a way that I should have been raised. I was whatever. So you're justifying your actions because you deserve it. You don't deserve to be an asshole. I wasn't an asshole, but I didn't deserve to behave the way I was behaving.
Well, and again, like, it's not that. Yeah, like, it's not that your parents instinctually were like, tamper down your voice. Like, if they had thought, or if our parents had thought at some point that was actually going to negatively affect you,
right? But if it was like I've looked in the past and been like, if my parents had taught me to speak up, I would not have ended up in abusive relationships. Like, maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. But I did for a while place a lot of blame on them for that. But then it has to come down to, like, no matter what, that situation happened. So what can I take out of it? How can I choose to grow and transform from this point on? Because that happened to me. Trauma has happened to us all. So how can you take what's happened to you and form a new pattern, a new way to raise your daughter, a new way to interact with the community, a new way to bring your lessons to other people so that they can evaluate where they're not happy in their life.
And in a weird way, when you start to see and when you start to connect the dots as to, like, why you're more inclined to do certain things, or why you're more likely, based off of just experience and repeating those experiences, like, you can take yourself out of your cycle. You don't have to wait for some big other traumatic or happy event to change your life. Like, it can just be a decision to say, I'm not going to repeat these patterns anymore.
It does not have to be a bottom.
Not because I deserve it, not because I'm worthy of it, just because that's a decision that you can make. You can say, I'm not going to hit my kid, or I'm not going to tell my daughter how pretty she is. I'm going to remind her how strong she is, or how kind she is, or I'm going to enforce within my son that compassion and kindness is the way to, lead. It's just conscious decisions every day.
And every time you say something, like, how many times have you caught yourself saying something that's just something that you've heard?
Oh, God.
And then you're like, I don't actually think that. And
do I believe that?
Right.
Yeah.
That happened a lot when I was finding my voice as a yoga teacher. Because, like, when you come into teaching yoga, you're like, I'm supposed to say all these things that other people say, right? Like, that's why they teach yoga. Like, I'm supposed to just...
It's almost like an expectation. And that's the thing with families, too. It's like, oh, well, you've been this way, so you're changing, and what? And why are you changing? That freaks us out. That's not what we programmed you to do. That's not what we taught you.
Like, in my family, I'm just trying to... Hi, family, if you're listening. I love you.
I hope it didn't freak out half my family. I had a family member call me, like, right after I posted on Instagram with the tagline, I was a drug dealer for nearly 9 years. And a few of my family members were like, so...
I know.
What's going on?
I actually, like, I've started bringing it up because they don't bring up my stuff, even though they were, like, witnesses going to rehab, which I'll talk about in another email. But, like, they don't bring it up, so I'll try to bring up, like, so I'm doing a lot better now. Do you want to hear about like how I've changed,
how I've coped?
They kind of like joke it off, but I'll just start talking about it. Like, back when I used to be wasted, and they're like,
good.
to me. So I actually sent my email to both my sisters, and they're like, "Oh, I was afraid to ask if it was okay if I subscribed." I'm like, "Of course it's okay. Like, I want you to be part of my life."
Yeah.
And so just like trying to get other people who have the same patterns to see that there's ways to break that pattern.
Yeah. Well, and there's just, we forget how much, once we're older and we're adults and we can think on our own and we can self-sustain and feed ourselves and clothe ourselves, and
Almost there.
we're almost there. It is your responsibility to look deeper at why the things that upset you the most. Because we're in a time and an age where like information is just shoved in your face.
Likely not.
And it's likely, well, it's either not true or it's going to in some way trigger you.
Well,
like,
it's written in a way, like,
it's like what I put. Like,
we're trying to excite you.
Yeah.
To get excited to read what it says. So it's,
but again, like when you come across things that make you really deeply uncomfortable or make you feel scared, like that's usually a part of you that needs to be looked at a little deeper, or it needs to be not even analyzed or picked apart, but just seen as like, well, what about that statement makes me jump to my conclusions, right? Like racism. When we get on the subject of racism, and when you see white people get defensive about Black Lives Matter, when that's just you needing to check your privilege, and that's you needing to check in with like.
And when people say check your privilege and that upsets you, you need to check your privilege again because you're privileged and you're white.
Yeah,
it's
just a fact. And like, and if you don't believe that that's a fact, then that's another reason to look at your history and your past and your history with your family and how your family looks at stuff that makes you uncomfortable, and how do you deal with that, either in your small circles of friends, or how you deal with that and talk about the uncomfortable stuff that comes up in a way that's not like, oh, it's okay that you're not talking.
Right.
No, you're like, why are you talking?
But
why are you using your voice?
If it's uncomfortable,
what is making you tamper that down?
To do the research to be like, why is this a thing? Why is it making me uncomfortable? Why is talking about it in my family? Like, what is this? What is going on inside of me that's making me angry or upset? And if
what experiences could have come from my parents or my grandparents or my great-grandparents?
Trying to jump in and justify. If you try to jump in, like I used to jump in and justify, like, no, I deserve to feel this way because I've been through this. So a lot of white people will be like, well, I've also had a shitty life. I've been through a lot. But no, it's not the same thing because you've not been oppressed.
Yeah, you've been
for generations
systemically oppressed. Or
the country is not set up for your failure.
No, and the thing with when we start dealing with like family history, wounds that are older than like our lifetime, because we carry forward in our DNA information. We get information from our family. We download information from our experiences, and that lives in us. And if we don't have an outlet to let it go, it stays and it sits and it gets bigger and it manifests. And that fear, that subconscious fear of Black people, or the subconscious fear of speaking our voice, or the subconscious fear, whatever the fuck you're breaking through, right? For me, a big thing in my family, especially the women in my family, it kind of surrounds itself with worth, and it surrounds it in allowing ourselves to be bigger and allowing ourselves to take up more space and allowing ourselves to take up more say. And so, like, a lot of this really eats at me, and it eats at me in a way that I know that if I don't tackle this myself, I am going to give it to my daughter. Ellie is going to grow up feeling like she's not as worthy as she is, or she's not going to feel as loved because she might have to question it. And so these are the things that we just don't even, it's like we don't want to take responsibility. We don't want to take responsibility for our pain, and we don't want to take responsibility for our family's pain. It's okay to feel the shit that's gotten passed down to you and to say, wow, this isn't my pain, and it was never my pain to carry with me, and I'm consciously going to let it go. I'm consciously going to work through it and ask myself on a day-to-day basis, is this mine, or is this something that's been given to me?
It's also, it's hard. So it's a process of, like, we could easily, as we become adults, go through our lives without thinking about anything or really analyzing anything. We
go to work, we go home,
we go to work, we read things, we agree with them, we don't agree with them, we don't think about them, we just have reactions based on how you've been taught and trained. And the more you spend time evaluating what you actually believe and what you actually think, so you have a reaction to something, you step back and you think, do I believe that? Is that something that was passed down to me? How do I feel about that? Does that make me uncomfortable? Why does it make me uncomfortable? So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work of unthreading. It's like this big yarn knot.
You're literally like decoding all these knots.
This yarn ball all tangled up, and you're like having to piece it together, and then it's going to lead one way, and then it's going to lead another way, and then there's going to be knots and tangles. And it's taking yourself into the place of not judgment, not criticism, but just awareness. So awareness of the feelings that it's stirring up.
So you can still love your family, and so you can still like see them as humans, and you can still see them as like they're trying, right? But if we don't do the work ourselves, and then we go and we try to talk to our family members, or talk to our parents, or talk to the people that are closest to us in our circles, if we're not doing that work ourselves, but yet we're expecting them to get where we're coming from, it'll never translate.
Why do you think the country
It'll always come off as you trying to be better than, or like judge them, or looking down on them.
Part of the reason why the country is so divided is because no one works on this. Like, no one talks about these patterns. Everyone just flocks to what they were trained. Like, I vote this way because my family's always voted this way. I vote this way because my neighbors vote this way. So taking the time to actually like work through what you believe and observe and let yourself sit with the feelings that are stirred up, even if that means you look differently at the people that you care about and love, it means that you're going to start to understand and be able to recreate new patterns and make changes in the communities that you're in, and make changes with the relationships, because people are going to see you do it, and they're going to want to do it themselves as well. Because again, it's just, I lived mindlessly for 30-some years because I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to identify and feel those things that were coming up in me. I didn't want to work on them. So has it been uncomfortable? Do I have a lot of sleepless nights where I'm like just thinking about the things that are going?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, and I felt very, my whole life, I feel like that's part of my like Aquarian moon, if you will, but like, I've always kind of been able to step back out of situations that I'm in and look at it from the kind of like an outsider.
It's like you're not in your body, you're observing what's happening.
Yeah, but I always, from a young age, like in situations that would present themselves where I knew I was supposed to react or supposed to be a certain way, there were certain places or certain times when I was like, I know I'm supposed to be uncomfortable right now, or I know I'm supposed to be feeling a certain way, but I don't, and why? And I'm very glad that I've always had that, like, why, what the fuck in the back of my head, kind of like questioning anything that anybody tells me. But in all of that confusion, I really wish that there had been someone that just said, look a little deeper, like invite yourself to go behind the surface. It's not as scary as we make it out to be.
Like, again, it takes the time it takes.
It takes the time it takes. We have and it's not about decoding everything that's ever happened in your life in like a week. It's work that is really supposed to happen your whole life. Like, it's supposed to,
Even just noticing when they happen, not even doing anything about it.
yeah.
Just noticing, like, oh,
And these are
that
fine.
wasn't me that actually
These
said
are like,
that. That was like my great grandmother.
I know, right? Like, oh my God, when stuff has come out of my mouth before, I've been like, ooh, was that like an old creaky white lady? What the fuck was that? Like, where did that come from? And you know, how did that even get there? Is a lot of the times, you know, from a young age, when you're raising your kids, you know, we say, you'll hear parents say like, oh, they're so impressionable. And it's like, yeah, they are. They see
You tell
everything,
a
they
child
feel
they're not going to
everything.
like it. They're not even going
They're
to try it.
probably
They're
not
just going to
gonna
say
try it.
they're going to become 40 years old and be like, I don't like Brussels sprouts.
Because I never tried
Yeah,
it.
because your mom said you weren't going to like it. Anyway, it's getting to be about 30 minutes.
It's trying to get to that point where we're like, not
Getting
really
the same
focused.
things. But sign up for the emails if you're not. We're going to include past emails in the emails, but you have to be subscribed to the emails to get to the past emails.
Yeah.
So that is the only way to get the emails is if you become a subscriber.
Yeah.
And you're going to miss out on some great writing, I hope.
And then this month of June, we have some really awesome workshops. I actually was just working with Sarah Kirby, who's going to be doing her foam rolling workshop. So it's if you're intrigued with learning how to work with tennis balls and foam rollers and things like that to break up some of the fascia tissue that gets really stuck. That workshop's coming up the middle to end of June. And then we have Clayton Weekly. He's DeskRx on Instagram, or Clayton.moves. And he's going to be coming. He's a functional range conditioning mobility specialist, because that's a certified actual training. Sorry, yoga teachers, you're not certified, you're registered. That's an inside joke between us. Another Tuesday talk.
It's an ancestral yoga room.
That is an ancestral yoga. You're not fucking certified.
You're not certified.
You're registered with Yoga Alliance.
Right.
Okay.
If you are.
If you are, which we don't care if you are. I digress. Clayton is coming to teach mobility for hips and shoulders. Saturday is going to be Your Hips Don't Lie, mobility and can stretch and functional range conditioning for your hips and your low body.
Make your body feel good.
Yeah, you'll see Laura and I both in these workshops. And then he's on here on Sunday for shoulders and head and neck and arms. Don't miss these. He's coming down from Pittsburgh. This is a specialized, learn how your body moves, learn how your body functionally moves in and out of space and down to the ground and up, and learn how to apply pressure in appropriate ways. These two workshops will enhance your yoga, Pilates, bar practice by 100-fold.
Everything you do, running, climbing.
Everything. And he's actually going to be, I'll probably create a little link, but he's going to be doing a private climbing workshop while he's here on Saturday after the hip workshop. So if you're a climber and you want more information on that, hit us up, because I know we've got some climbers in our community. And I think that's it for this week. But we love you guys.
We love you. Thanks for all the support as we start to share our stories. It's been
your
really
loving
incredible
words.
Feel free to talk to us at any point. We're putting it out there. We're not afraid.
Yeah.
We are afraid, but we're excited to talk to you about it and share more with you, because we know that everyone has struggles and everyone has things that they're dealing with, and we just want to share that we are part of that too. So,
yeah. Okay. We love you.
See you tomorrow.